Love you too. Who's that?
Kaylin.
Is that Kaylin?
So I showed him how we did it Creek County style. Good morning, everybody. We ready to get started? Maybe. Oh, I thank you, Father, for this day. I just thank you just this time of year. And I'm pretty thankful for every time of year. I'm thankful for another day. I'm always thankful for your joy and your peace that you give us. And I just want to praise your great, great name. Amen. Now, we're going to talk about Sarah today. And to be honest with you, I was real excited because I thought, man, I got 2 weeks to do some studying on her. And when I actually started studying on it, you know, just with my Bible and reading commentary, I was a little disappointed in what I was getting out of it, if that makes sense. So last night, after I got to help little Jake Atkinson skin a deer. Just so you know, that's 2 for him this year. Which now he's caught up with me. So since I'm his guide, he'll be probably swatting mosquitoes or something from now on. But as I was going over everything last night, you know, and I knew in my mind what I was hoping we could get out of it. This morning I got up a little bit early, not John Slagger early, but, you know, about 6 o'clock. I just couldn't sleep. Something kind of gnawing on me. I just started, you know, what does her name mean? That's usually how I start off everything. And I found a neat little study on her. And then I thought, oh man, I wish I'd have found this a week ago. And I believe it was an actual Jewish study on her. But it was a breakdown of her life. And I had forgotten, when we're reading about these people in the Bible, and we look at all the mistakes they make, you know, we need to think, what are they going through at the time? Why would they do this? And most generally, you're going to find out, hopefully, that, you know, just like us, you know, and I say it all the time, hey, they're just living life. We're just living life. And every once in a while, something happens, and you totally lose your mind. Not Miss Jennifer, but everybody else. You just lose your mind, and you're like, why did I do that? So we're going to start with Sarah. It's Miss Judy, is it her first name? Sarai? Sarai. Okay. It meant my princess. Okay? She's not Sarah yet. And we know she married Abraham. And if you remember, you know, our next big person is going to be Abraham, but there's so much in his life. I'm breaking it down to the people in his life. And we know that Abraham is going to be the father of many nations. His descendants are going to be more than the stars. But we forget that Sarai, did I say that? Okay, is part of that promise. All right? It was actually her promise too. So don't forget that. In Genesis 12, 2 and 3, we're not going to read everything because there's actually an awful lot of reading. If you go to Genesis 12, it says, I will make you into a great nation, 12:2, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. And if you kind of look at that, this is kind of, they might have been talking about, hey, eventually there's going to be this guy named Jesus that's going to come from your family that is going to bless all of your people that belong to you. And so anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there. But remember, that promise was also to Sarai. And I'm going to say that wrong a bunch of times. So, okay, so y'all following me? It wasn't just Abraham. And then if you go on down to verse 7, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your offspring I will give this land. So the land he's talking about is actually the Canaan, the country of Canaan and the Canaanites, and it's eventually going to be, I believe, Israel. So he was given this promise. Then you turn around, and you know, if you read the whole story, like I said, it covers quite a few chapters. There's a famine. So to get away from this famine, he moved all of his people now. Now this is the land that was promised to him by God. They moved to Egypt. All right? And I figured about this time, Abram would have been 75 years old. Okay? So Sarai, I believe, would be 65. I think there's about 10 years difference. Correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes my gazentas aren't right. So this 65-year-old woman, you know, we always talk about having a baby when you're 100, but think about it. This 65-year-old woman is moving to Egypt, and because she's so beautiful, Abram's worried that when the Pharaoh from Egypt sees her, he's going to kill Abram so that he could have Sarai. Now understand, okay, because we think, oh, this is a bad deal, weird deal. The Pharaoh was going to have her no matter what, okay? Because once he saw her, saw this beauty on this woman, and we're going to learn some pretty cool things, I hope, here in a little bit. Okay? He was going to take her. No way around it. Now, we always look like Abram. You know, he's kind of shady. But if you think, he said, just say you're my brother. If he's her brother, that was a place of protector over Sarai. So he could still be around her, help protect her. But because he's her brother, and the Pharaoh's going to take her no matter what, maybe he can get something out of it. Yeah. All right? Well, yeah. Actually, the little article that I read, it was like, share a wife, save a life, was the cute little, and that's basically what happened. And so don't knock Abram so much, and don't knock Sarai so much. It was her grace, and I love this. I didn't look up the word benevolence, but when it was her grace and benevolence, she loved her man so much that she was willing to do this for him, okay? And they ended up getting a lot of, I don't know, they got servants, male and female, they got goats, cows, whatever, because Pharaoh wanted her. Now, understand there was a promise involved. And I'm kind of running through this. There's a promise. What was the promise? That they were going to be parents of a great nation. Okay? If she's not with Abram, then who's going to be the father of all these people? Well, the Pharaoh. So God, in remembering his promise to her, caused, well, let me find it here. not a plague, but like plagues to come on. I wanted to read it to you what exactly happened. Anyway, it was so bad that the Pharaoh kind of figured out, okay, the only thing that's changed is I took this man's sister. Well, he figures it out that, well, maybe that's not his sister at all. Well, instead of saying, killing him anyways, he says, hey, why did you do this to us? Please take her and please leave and take everything with you. All right? They got blessed, once again, in a tough situation. And you're going to find out, well, why are they blessed? They believe in God. They trust God. They're counted as righteous. Now, you're going to find in, I'm not going to read it, but in Genesis 20, it happens again. This time it's in the country of Gerar. It happens again. Okay? She's beautiful. This king wants her. He takes her. But before he can have her, and Abram said, hey, this worked once before. Okay? Why don't we roll the dice? But now before anything, can actually happen, the king has a dream, is told, and then she got to leave again. But 2 times it's her grace and benevolence. And I should have looked that word up. Taylor, you got your Google going? What's but? A heart that acts out of love and service. I think of the Disney movie that come out with Angelina Jolie.
That's the opposite.
Okay, my bad. Okay, my bad. Okay, if you watch that show, it's the opposite. So, a heart that acts out of love. What greater thing could she pass down than this? So are y'all with me? This is this woman. If you, in Genesis 16, 1 through 6, okay, this is a woman of grace and benevolence, all right? In 1 through 6, now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Abram agreed to what Sarai said. Of course he did. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarah said to Abram, you are responsible for the wrong I am now suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. This wasn't uncommon practice at the time. Okay? It happened all the time. All right? Sometimes when we're living life, we think, I know God has a plan. Okay? I know He's leading me this direction. Well, sometimes instead of waiting, okay, her first promise, she was about 65 years old. It didn't come to fruition until about 25 years later. So you're like, well, what can I do? Because I know this promise is mine. Also understand that Hagar was treating her pretty bad. Understand what Sarai had gone through. She was already given up once to help protect Abram. So maybe in her mind, she's thinking, oh gosh, is he going to turn me loose because I couldn't bear him a child? Okay, are y'all following me? I'd never thought about that before. maybe that's a little bit while she's irritated. Maybe Abram wasn't showing her the affection that, so I mean, when life hits us, okay, instead of us being quick to judge how someone acts, we need to have that compassion like, okay, why are they acting like that? In Genesis, are y'all okay with where we're going with this?
Yeah.
She's just a person, but she has grace, and she loves to do things out of the love of her heart. And she didn't want to be kicked to the curbside. In Genesis 17:17, I thought this was pretty cool. He's having a conversation with God, Abram, and he said, in the verse up above, I'll tell you what, let's start with 16. God also said to Abraham, okay, now it's Abraham, not Abram. As for Sarah, your wife, you are no longer to call her that. Her name will be Sarah. And Sarah in Arabic meant joy and delight. And I thought, that's beautiful right there. And still in Hebrew, it meant woman of high rank or princess. Okay, so it's still basically the same, but they added a different context to, hey, joy and delight, because she's a joy and delight with her grace and with her doing things out of the love of her heart, which, by the way, is a good example not just for the women in here, but for the men as well. Just act out of the love that's in your heart. Okay, where was I at? 16. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her, not Hagar, by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? So that's kind of where I got that 10 years difference in their life, okay? But meeker math sometimes a little bit different than preg math or Seminole math or or what? New math? Yeah, I tried that once. And then you find out that Ishmael wasn't going to get, we ain't talked about Ishmael yet. Okay. You might be wondering, why did I throw this verse in here? Abraham laughed. Okay. Let's go to 18, Genesis 18, 9 through 15. Picture in your mind, if you will. They don't have a house. They have a tent. Okay? Now, well, let me read it first. In verse 9, he's talking to the Lord, capital L. 3 visitors come, and this is where they have a talk with Abraham about he's going to go destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And he's like, well, what if we can find 50? And it works its way down to like 10. But anyway, where's your wife Sarah? They asked him. Out there in the tent, he said. Then one of them, they couldn't see her. She's in the tent. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. I'm not saying people are busybodies, but I could picture my wife while I was having a conversation with somebody that's important, having the door shut with her ear up on the door. I mean, who's done that? And I'm sorry, as a guy, I might have done that before. I'm like, my wife's pretty heated on that telephone. I wonder what's going on. Who's she talking to? Okay. Anyway, I just thought, she's a woman. And I don't mean that negative. She's just a person. How's that? She's just one of us. Two angels and the Lord appeared. And she's like, I'm going to find out what's going on. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing, which is funny. She's going to be 90 next year when she has her baby, right? If you notice, this is chapter 18, and I told you earlier that in chapter 20, she gets took by another king because of her beauty. I wonder how pretty this woman really was. And there's plenty of women in here that I can see the grace and without offending anybody at an older age. And I'm like, this woman must have been something. And I think we've got perfect examples in our church of that example of how you can show that grace, that benevolence. Anyway, so we know here pretty soon she gets took again, which it just, I don't know, just amazes me. So Sarah, now, the reason why I told you in 17:17, they have been together a long time, her and Abraham, okay? You might say that they were one. Does that make sense? I can promise you if something makes me laugh, it'll probably make my wife laugh. And over the years, our thinking has kind of came together. So after Sarah heard this, on the inside of the tent, where no one can see her because they didn't know where she was at, which I'm sure, since that was Lord with capital L, that he knew she was there. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? She laughed to herself. She didn't laugh loud. And I'm thinking in my mind, she's thinking her age. Well, I would be thinking, of course, it's kind of like I have a very wealthy uncle who hit the California lottery. And some of that's going to be mine one day. But my joke is, he's young enough, because he's younger than my mom, that he's going to live to be super old. And by the time I get this money, I'm going to be, I'm kind of hitting the top of the hill now. And, another 20 years, I'm like, dang, my kids are sure going to enjoy that money. Just, but that's what I would be thinking. At this age, now, why not before? Okay? And I don't have an answer for that. But you think she's doubting. And she probably has some doubt. There's sometimes in our life, she's waited 25 years to have this son, and she's like, now? So this is, you can see where there's some doubt. Don't judge her. Then the Lord said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Abraham's probably like, what are you talking about? I'm out here with you. I'm not in here with her. Okay, verse 14. He didn't get on to her. Okay? Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is anything too hard? The Creator, the Master. Mr. Gary was talking to me this morning about things that have happened recently. People growing new elbows, new hearts. It can still happen. Nothing is too complicated. Nothing. We have to understand that. We have to know that our God is the creator. We believe. Then, Sarah knew she's busted. She was afraid. What do we do when we're afraid? Sorry, Starlin. I know there's a big dent and that window's busted out, but it was Sean Berry that did it. I told him. She lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yeah, you did. God knows. Then we know, she had the child. Let's go to Genesis 21:6. Remember right there, okay? Let's go to Genesis 21:6. One of the last things other than she died, which I didn't want to talk about that, we hear about Sarah. This is after the child was born. 8 days after, Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, and yet I have bore him a son in his old age. Okay? The joy. When 25 years of struggling, the promise comes forth. The relief washed over her. Anyway, I just thought that was funny because that's the last thing in Scripture that, other than, once again, that she died, was she laughed. Whereas before, she was in trouble for laughing at what God promised her. Well, now she's laughing because what God promised her come true. We may not believe it, but understand if God says it, it's going to happen. Yes.
Isaac means laughter.
And Isaac means, I did not know that. But I would have figured it out because he's going to be here in a couple of weeks. In Hebrew 11:11, my commentary called this, and I don't know, everybody's might, but I've never heard that before, the Faith Hall of Fame. And as you're reading the chapter of 11, it starts off, in verse 3, by faith we understand that the universe was formed by God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. Okay? But then it talks about Abel. It talks about Enoch. In verse 7, Noah. Then by 8, Abraham. Then when you get down to verse 11, and by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children because she considered him faithful who made the promise. Who made the promise to you? God. Trust in that. These people we're talking about believed in God, that it was considered righteous. And if you notice, there hasn't been a law yet. I think the only law was when the circumcision. God wanted them to be circumcised. Other than that, it's just knowing God is God. God is there. God is real. And that's a place we need to come to in our life, is to understand that. And if you get a promise, it's God. He made stuff out of nothing. You may look at your life and go, man, I got nothing. All the better. Because if you could say, oh no, this happened because of what I had, God can do something with that nothing. So remember that. Everybody okay? All right, that's the end of my lesson. Thank you.